Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am the Sarcastic Barman and welcome to my channel. Now, there's been quite a few debates online recently. I saw Professor Dave tackle Kent Hovind. I saw Conspiracy Cats tackle Kent Hovind. And do you know what they both had in common? They both absolutely destroyed him, and he had no answer for half the questions they presented, and tried to stick to his normal rhetoric of, look, this car had to be thingy because it's metal, design it like a human body. It's like, no, cars are obviously designed because they're mechanical. A human body's fucking biological. Jeez, this isn't a difficult concept. But he then decided to do 2 nights on the row of Whack an Atheist going after Professor Dave. Now, while I don't believe Professor Dave needs defending, Kent Hovind needs putting down a peg or two. So we're going to check out one of these videos. Yay!
Man, this one is totally empty.
Oh, Kent, you're so funny, trying to look for life in a normal everyday rock. No, just no. Why don't you go to the bottom of the oceans and look there for life-forming material? But you'll want to go back billions of years when the life wasn't there already. So then you're looking around at just these boring chemicals floating about, taking energy in from the volcanoes that are erupting below them, adding heat, which they convert into energy. And these chemicals sort of self-assemble and chemical evolution takes place. This is something we have seen nowadays. We've seen chemicals form together into long strands when just left alone with energy being added. We've seen them form into more complex sort of chains of molecules. We've also seen some form together as a hollow sphere, which very much looks like a cell. So could you imagine over billions of years these things taking place? Eventually life would form. So yeah, stop looking at a rock and stop trying to say we think it comes from a rock. No, we don't. We think it comes from chemicals.
Good evening, folks. Kent Hovind here and the crew at Dinosaur Adventureland. Tonight is Whack an Atheist with Dr. Kent, the Science Gent. We've been looking frantically for one functioning brain cell in those who believe there is no God, those who claim there's no God. Anybody with one eye and half a brain and one functioning brain cell can see this had to be designed.
Wow, wow, that intro. You really do like comparing apples and oranges, don't you? That's a bush that's then been cut into the shape of a fucking animal. Of course that's going to need a designer. It's not going to naturally grow into that shape. There's no evolutionary purpose for it to grow into that sort of shape. Plants and bushes grow upwards towards the sun to collect more energy. Why the hell would they ever want to form into that sort of shape? Stop comparing apples and oranges and do some actual science. The fact you're calling yourself a science gent and then making that observation is just laughable. It's absolutely laughable. I'd need to be extremely drunk to make that sort of analogy, but no, whatever.
These things don't happen in nature. So here we are trying to figure out why some people can deny there's a designer and a God. I can't figure it out. I think they're brain dead.
Why could we not think there's a designer? Possibly because the human body itself is so badly designed, and many other animals share these traits of bad design. Now, if God's supposed to be perfect, shouldn't these designs be perfect? Wait, let me do that without the glasses. Oh wait, no, I can't see you.
And here's Dave right here.
We are just adjusting the size to make sure it's just right.
While he does that, not a cult. They like that.
Okay, so you start when I start?
Yes, sir.
Okay, here we go. Let's begin by stating that evolution by natural selection.
Now, I don't mean to pick on the little things, but you've got people there helping you with this production. I don't care if you're doing it live or not, but shouldn't they know to cut your own microphone before playing a clip? That way you're not getting that stupid echo and hardly hearing it, and then play the audio via the video, not on that screen that then is being picked up through the room. That's just daft. That's seriously daft. I hope you aren't paying these people who are helping you with videos. But anyway, you're about to make a point, so we'll let you make your point.
Is an observable fact.
Let's stop, Dave. Let's stop right there. Natural selection only selects. It doesn't create anything. Natural selection can select the strongest to survive, and it generally does that, though there are a lot of exceptions to that, but it's not going to create anything.
Whoa, whoa, whoa there, Eskimo! This debate was on evolution, not on abiogenesis. You had to show that evolution wasn't real, and he showed that evolution was real. Now, if you're moving the goalposts, that's one thing, or if you were unclear on what the debate was on, that's another. But let's be fair, everyone understood that it was evolution and creationism, not creationism and abiogenesis. Otherwise, you're opening yourself up for a hell of a lot more.
See, natural selection selects. That is an observable fact, but it is not going to be any help to your evolution religion. Dave, it's not going to work.
So hang on. You agree that natural selection, one of the building blocks of evolution, is an observable fact, but then you want to deny evolution. Okay. That just sounds like stupid logic. Absolutely stupid logic.
Expose some bacteria to antibiotics, chance mutations lead to resistant ones, the rest die, and soon they're all descended from the resistant ones. That's evolution by natural selection.
He says this is evolution. Look at this happen. What's happening here? Some bacteria is better than the rest of them. It already had a resistance to a certain antibiotic. So the antibiotic killed all the rest of them. The one with the resistance survived. You're a medical doctor. This is a fact of science. It happens, okay? So now, did this create anything new in the bacteria? Or did it already, one of them already had the resistance for some reason? Almost always, the resistance is because that bacteria is malformed in some way. There's a problem with it, and the pesticide or whatever they're putting on it, bactericide, cannot kill it. So it's almost always a negative thing. In the real population, this one is a weaker one, but it will survive with the, because it has a resistance. Yes, ma'am.
Oh dear, Kent, that was a very lackadaisical response there, wasn't it? Jeez Louise. Now, let's get a better response on antibiotic resistance, shall we? And explain it a bit more for you. Now, while all mutations might not be beneficial to the next generation of bacteria, it's only if they're a hindrance do they become a problem. Now, this could be a thinner cell membrane or more susceptible to natural environments, say a lower threshold to heat. These would then die off, but ones that have a neutral impact wouldn't necessarily die off on the next generation. They'd just be passed on because they're not causing a problem for the bacteria themselves. This could be a thicker cell membrane, a more selective cell membrane, or different bonds within the bacteria themselves. Now, while at the time these might not seem like positive factors, if they're not causing a problem, they're going to get passed on. And these are the things that then do actually cause antibiotic resistance. Certain bacteria strains have developed thicker cell membranes that are more selective on what gets passed through them. Hence then that the antibiotics cannot enter the cell to cause damage. Others have developed pumps that then will selectively pump out chemicals that are not wanted by the bacteria, that then allow the bacteria to flourish more because these antibiotics can't stay in the cell to cause damage. Others have developed different chemical bonds. If you imagine it like a jigsaw puzzle, they are one size a piece, and the antibiotics tend to be the piece that would fit next to them. But some have changed to be the piece just over there. Well, that antibiotic then cannot latch on to that cell and cause the damage needed. These might not be beneficial at the time, but are going to get passed on. This is natural selection at work. I don't get how this is a problem for you.
It's still a bacteria.
Well, that's the point. A, it is still a bacteria. B, I want you to follow the logic here, because this is exactly the way Adolf Hitler went. He said, let's find the superior species on planet Earth of humans and eliminate the rest of them so the evolution can take place and the superiors take over the world. That's what this is really teaching in a subtle way.
Wow, yeah, lost for words there. You're saying that we teach evolution to show Hitler stuff and think, wow. Actually lost for words at this point. Talk about lowering the bar on your level of debating and skills that you got to bring Hitler into it. Oh, just no. Just no. We're gonna just leave that point. This is why I should watch videos beforehand. Jesus. Oh, but we'll address Fucking hell. We'll address the point your colleague made in the background about, yes, they're still bacteria. And yes, they are still bacteria. They're still single-celled life. But what if we've seen, in a laboratory, single-celled life becoming multicellular life? Would that be something that would interest you? Or would you say, no, it can't happen? Now, but we've seen it happen. Now, the experiment basically ran with single-celled algae life and a predator that fed on the single-celled organisms, which was itself another single-cell life. Now, over the space of about 750 generations, the single-celled algae evolved, I'm going to put evolved, or you can say mutated, I don't mind, into multicellular algae, which then made it impervious to the attacks from the single-celled predator. Now, if the experiment was left to run longer, I would like to think that the single-celled predator that fed on the single-celled algae may have a mutation at some point as the food sources become more rare that would become more beneficial to it, where it itself may become multicellular to feed on the multicellular algae that is then present in the water around it. This could go on for absolutely years upon years upon years upon years upon years, and eventually you start seeing far more complicated life. Now, the experiment for the 750 generations ran for about 50 weeks. So it shows that it doesn't take long to get to that stage. But then you'd have to have evolved first into the stage of the algae life. So yes, we've seen these things happen. We know evolution happens. And we've seen single cell life transition into more complex multicellular organisms. Kent. Just no. No.
One was already superior because it had this resistance, and so it took over the population of bacteria. Well, first place, it didn't change a thing, it didn't create a thing, and this is not how evolution works, Dave. I'm sorry. You are wrong.
Is he wrong, though? Because we've already seen and talked about how these mutations can create different parts within the cell. So, does that not count for something?
Natural selection selects, okay? It doesn't create anything. And it's not advantageous. The textbooks talk about evolution and natural selection. I got how many biology textbooks here? A bunch of them, okay? Natural selection causes evolution, this book says. This is a bold-faced lie. Natural selection selects. Genes vary in natural populations, I agree. Some giraffes are taller, some are shorter. But they're going to tell you the giraffe got the taller neck so it could reach the leaves in the tree. This is absolute baloney. Giraffe has a long neck so he can reach the ground to get a drink. His front legs are pretty long, you know. Watch him try to get a drink sometime. There are lots of animals that live with the giraffes that don't have a long neck and can't reach the leaves on the top of the tree, and they do just fine. This giraffe has a long neck because it was designed that way.
Oh, wow. I feel like all my Christmases have come at once. Perfect. You pick the one animal that probably most debunks the solo-looking designer and points more towards a single traced organism that then evolved and branched into everything else. Well done, Kent. Well done. Now, we'll tackle the long neck first. We'll go with the easy stuff. While it's true, there are other animals that live on the savannah that then eat the lower down food. If the giraffe didn't have the long neck, they would all be competing for the same sort of food source, wouldn't they? So they'd all be after the low sort of bushes. So imagine a place like that where all the animals are competing for these low level bushes. This puts a lot of pressure on them to get enough food because they're all competing after the same food source. Now, if you happen to be an animal that then has a generation that's slightly taller, you can reach other food that the other animals can't. This becomes a beneficial trait. This gets passed on and passed on and passed on and passed on, and it becomes more beneficial to have the food higher up as other animals get slightly bigger because there's more food for them. You know how things work, the more food, the animals can grow bigger, these genes get passed on, blah, blah, blah. Now, eventually you get to the point where you have a giraffe that doesn't have to compete for food with any other animal, hence its long neck, long legs. But while this one has evolved upwards, a lot of the other animals have then had less pressure on them to have any beneficial traits that means they've got to have different food sources. So one evolution of one species has directly affected the evolution of another in a way because of natural freaking factors. Simple as, all understand? Brilliant. Now, let's look at something in giraffes that are also in humans, the laryngeal nerve. Now, this is a nerve that comes from the brain, down round the heart, and back up to your larynx. And it helps control your voice and how you make noise and things like that. Now, in humans, that just seems stupid, doesn't it? Come down round the heart and back up to the voice. That's a silly idea. Now imagine that in a giraffe, to go from a giraffe's skull all the way down, round its heart and its chest, to come all the way back up. This is why giraffes don't really have much in the way of mating calls or growls or anything like that. It's more of a low, rumbly sort of noise. Because of the distance it's got to travel through the nerve, they can't sort of have that same control that we have. Now, this does seem like a silly idea, but if you go back to fish, that nerve went from the brain past the heart to the gills, and it's the process that then evolved and moved on and moved on. Now, in fish, it works. In people and other animals, we've made it work because that's how it was, and there was no benefit to having it the other side of the heart. But if you're saying it was all designed that way, why? Why would you make it go all the way down and back up? That's just stupid. Absolutely stupid. I love a bit of movie magic. So he's basically rabbited on for a few minutes how natural selection doesn't add any new information to a species. And yes, he's right, the natural selection doesn't add the new information. A mutation may add the new information. The natural selection just makes that mutation, whatever that's added, become either a hindrance or a positive effect that then spreads it through the community. Several mutations down the line, this could cause speciation and a new species that is no longer able to interbreed with previous generations of the species. This isn't a difficult concept, and you're twisting it in such a way that try and say that natural selection doesn't add anything. No, it doesn't. It just promotes what has been added or takes it out of the mix. Geez, this isn't a difficult concept at this point.
This is lie number 19 in my video number 4 of my series. See, if you worked in a factory that produced cars, and your job was to select all the bad cars and reject them, a quality control, you know, car comes down the line, you kick the tires, roll up the windows and see if it works, and if it doesn't, you reject it. So if you selected only the good cars to go through and were able to find all the bad ones and reject them, how long would it take that process to turn the car to an airplane?
Really? Really? This is the line you're going to go down. Cars to airplanes. Okay, right. Well, we'll take the car. Now, the car comes down the production line. Someone's decided that instead of a normal engine, it should maybe have a propeller that pulls the car along. Does this car no longer work? Does it still move? Yes, it does. Does it perform any worse than the other car? No, it doesn't. So would you pass that car? Yes, you would, because it works. So there we go, this car's then going along. Pulled by a propeller. Okay, different form, but yeah, it works. Now this car, the next one comes down production line, say a couple of months later, and someone's had the idea that as it's driving along, what if it could jump over the car in front that's going a bit slower? Now, to do that, you're going to need wings or some sort of upward propulsion. So they've put very simple wings on the side of the car. It's explained to the person who's then looking at the production method, and he goes, I suppose, yeah, it's still a car because it can it's going to jump over the next car in front. And I go, yeah, okay, this makes it get to its destination faster or whatever, but it still drives as a car. Yeah, that's fine. We'll go with that. It just jumps over, but it's pulled by a propeller, so it's all fine. Now, a few months down the line or whatever, as we're doing cars, we'll do months, someone says, well, if those wings were a bit bigger, rather than going on the road and being stuck behind it, we could just fly and get to our destination even faster. We've already got propeller and basic wings, so yeah, that would work. And it comes down the production line and the bloke's very confused. He goes, well, I suppose, yeah, it still gets them from A to B. We've been making these cars with propellers and basic wings for months now. People have been jumping over each other. It's not caused any hassle, so I'm not going to reject it. So, yeah. And then cars start coming off the production line that are flying to their destination. At what point would the bloke have stopped that process if everything was like that? Now, it's a very difficult thing because you're comparing two completely different options. But that's roughly how the natural selection is going to work. Imagine if you're going to go for cars. We'll replace the car with a squirrel. The squirrel climbs a tree, lives in the trees, and then has to come down to go to the next tree. Now, if that squirrel could jump from one tree to another, would that be beneficial? Yes, it would. Now, it can jump from one to the other. It's developed better legs to give that bounce to go further. Now, what happens if one could get even further when jumping? Say it developed a fatty sort of skin-type tissue between its arms. Would that be beneficial? Would you stop that process? It can now jump further, meaning it's got to expend less energy climbing trees or going on the branches. So that becomes a beneficial trait, doesn't it? That then gets passed on. Now, at what point would that process then stop so you don't end up with bats? Well, on the note of bats to cars, I just realised how long this video's actually run for. So I think we're going to have to do a part 2, part 3 and part 4 because we're only about 12 minutes in to a 40-minute video. Yeah. So if you want to see more of this one, what's worse, there's a part 2 to his video as well, leave me a comment down below and we'll get on with making them, I think. But yeah, Kent Hovind. Jeez, this is just mental. But it's fun. I really enjoy evolution. It's one of my favourite topics. But yeah, thank you very much. I've been the Sarcastic Barman. Thank you for watching my channel. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe down below. You know all that stuff. And if you want one of these fantastic hoodies, links all down in the description below under Buy My Crap. Because why the hell not? It looks good. It's nice and warm, especially in winter. Jeez. But thank you very much and good night.
Hey, crazy Russian man, do you love clothes?
Ah! Yuri does like clothes!
Awesome. And do you love the barman in a way that's just like, yeah, he's really cool, I wish I was as cool as him?
Ah! The barman, he is the best! You do realize barman has lots of vodka.
Well, now you can have clothes with a barman's face on. Check the link down below for my Teespring.
Oh, awesome! Now Yuri can look good and stay warm while he drunk and burst out in garage. Yay!